Hi everybody, so in this video I'm going to be looking at Starfield and kind of trying to answer the question, what's it run like on the Xbox Series S, and is it worth buying the console to play it if you haven't got a console and you're eyeing up Starfield and thinking, this is something I quite fancy. So, how does it run? Well, you'll have about 15 minutes worth of gameplay that you'll see here. Just bear in mind that this is captured directly on the Xbox Series S, well, captured onto an SSD connected to the Xbox Series S, and then I copy it to my PC, and then I add the audio, and then I upload it to YouTube. So obviously there will be compression artifacts and loss of quality, so play it at full screen and full resolution to get the best of it, but it will always look slightly better on the console too. And the first thing got to say is really, it's early days for Starfield. You know, it's only been out for a few days at the time of recording this video, and so it's only at the beginning of its path towards optimization. And if you remember Cyberpunk 2077, or maybe even play Cyberpunk 2077 now and enjoy it, when that first came out, it was a complete disaster. I mean, we know all the stuff about it should have never really been on last-gen consoles. But on you know, even on high-end gaming PCs, it didn't run very well. And yet now, on the Xbox Series S for Cyberpunk, it has a 60 frames a second sort of performance mode. So I think going forward, what we'll see is Bethesda and Xbox Studios optimizing this game to work better and better. I wouldn't be surprised if in some sort of DLC pack, you know, a free DLC down the road in a few months' time, we'll see like a performance mode where you can go from what you're seeing here, which is really 30 frames a second most of the time. Sometimes it speeds up a little bit, I think, to something, you know, akin to 60 frames a second. And sort of 60 frames a second is my sweet spot for games. You know, that's what I really look for. If a game's running at 60 frames a second consistently, I'm pretty happy with that. Also, I think what we'll probably see in terms of optimization is an improvement to the blur, to the motion blur, because one of the ways that you can make a low frame rate game look better is by adding good motion blur. Now, if you come from the world of first-person shooters, people always say, the first thing you should turn off is motion blur. I tend to turn off film grain, but on a low frame rate game, where it's only clicking along at 30, I will turn it on if it's good motion blur. And a good example of that, again, is Cyberpunk 2077, where if you're running that on an Xbox Series S, in the normal mode, where it's running at about 30 frames a second, it actually has very good motion blur, because most of the time, and what you're seeing in this footage is really, I'm taking my time most of the time. I'm walking around slowly. I'm not spinning the camera around, but where you really notice 30 frames a second is when you spin the camera around. So especially when you're in combat and things like that. And that's where it can get a bit jarring. But a nice bit of motion blur softens that and hides it and makes it a lot easier on the eye. And I would expect to see, probably a little bit quicker than the performance mode coming, would be an improved motion blur on console. Apart from that, if you're used to playing games at 30 frames a second, then this will be fine. And to be honest, what I tend to find is when I'm playing on my gaming PC, and I'm used to like 60 frames a second, 120 frames a second, you do get used to it and it becomes what you expect. And then when I go back to something that's running slower, it's a bit jarring. But after about 10-15 minutes worth of playing, you don't notice it anymore. Honestly, it kind of goes away. And what comes instead, especially with Starfield, is this amazing sense of exploration and wonder. Because I guess this is a bit of a first impression review as well. And I've got to say, so I'm several hours in now, and I've played probably 3/4 of it on my PC and 1/4 of it on the Xbox Series S. But the sense of wonder and exploration and, what's round the corner, what am I going to be doing next, is the same on both systems, you know. And the clarity of, you know, when you're inside your spaceship and you're looking at individual things, you go, oh wow, this looks really, really good. And if you didn't know, there is excellent cross-platform progression. So if you've got a gaming PC and you've got a console, you can play it on your PC, and then when it saves and then you turn on your console, it will then upload that save to your console, so you can carry on from the same place. You can't play play both at the same time, but you can do them individually, and that's what I've been doing. And I'm very impressed. And I think one of the big benefits of playing on a Series S or a Series X or any console really is the ability just to kick back and relax, with your controller, sitting down on the couch, playing it on your television, and in a nice, relaxing manner. So far for me, it's been running fine. I mean, you've got to realise that it's limited. It's 30 frames a second, so you do get that jerkiness when you're going around. But graphically, I think it looks great. Also, I would say is that when you first start playing the game, the initial areas that you go to when you go to Alpha Centauri and you're looking around the city are pretty plain and boring. The first bits of it, like the upper bits. And you may well be fooled into thinking, well, this looks a bit plain. Again, if you've come from something like Cyberpunk 2077, you'll be a bit like, oh, this doesn't look as wow. But trust me, as the game progresses and you go to different areas, those different areas are much, much better than the almost sterile environments you get in... I can't remember what it's called now, the city. Is it New Atlantis or something like that? They're fairly boring environments, those environments. But when in New Atlantis, for example, when you go to the well, which is like where the working people live and work, everything looks a little bit better. And you'll see here we go to Mars and everything looked grittier and nastier and more lived in, and looks much better as well. And the other thing I'd say as well is, because if you've got Xbox Game Pass or Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, this is basically free on that, isn't it? Well, it's not free, you're paying for the pass, but you're not having to pay $100 to actually buy it. Is that sometimes it's easy to start these games and play them for like an hour or so and go, oh right, okay, well maybe this really isn't for me. I prefer Fallout 4, I prefer that aesthetic, I prefer Cyberpunk, I prefer other things. But trust me, with Starfield you want to stick with it because it does improve. And as the game starts to open up and you realise the different things you can do and the different places you can go, it's pretty special. And I, for one, even though sort of space exploration games aren't really my thing, I tend to be a little bit more grounded with games like Cyberpunk or DayZ or PUBG or things like that. I'm looking forward to playing an awful lot more of this game. So, is it worth buying a console for? Well, I think you can't ignore the fact that if you're on an old gen console still, say you're on a PlayStation 4 or an Xbox One, then maybe this is the time to upgrade, because you can get in the UK you can get the Xbox Series S for about £250, and in the States I think it's about $300, isn't it? They are bringing out a 1 terabyte version of the Series S soon, I think. It might be coming out soon. I'm not quite sure when it's coming out. And if that one's available, I would say definitely go for the 1 terabyte version, because these are big games. These are 100 gigabyte games. And also, one of the other big reasons for getting like an Xbox Series S is things like Microsoft Flight Simulator, which is free as well. And these are big games. And the smaller version, the one I've got, the 512 gigabyte one, you run out of space very, very quickly, and you end up spending another £100 and plus more on the expansion module for the special memory it needs. So I would say, if you haven't got a gaming PC and you're on an old console, then it could well be worth buying an Xbox Series S for this, because for less than the price of a new graphics card, for a gaming PC, you can have this highly capable machine that not only can you play it actually installed on the console itself, but you can also you can play it via the cloud as well. It's not as good though, the graphics definitely aren't as good that way, but it's definitely worth looking at. And I think probably from what I've seen other people saying online about this in videos and things like this, I think that this is going to be on the Game of the Year list for many of the video reviewers and YouTubers and the podcasts that I respect, that I listen to, and I go, all right, I know if they think something about a game, then I'm gonna pay attention to that. Especially what lots of people seem to be saying is, the more you play it, the better it gets, and even when you finish the game and start it again, it's even better that way. So there we go. How does it play on an Xbox Series S, Starfield? Well, 30 frames a second, but it looks great in my opinion. So they really need to improve the motion blur, and it'd be nice to have a performance mode soon. Is it worth buying a console for? Well, I think if you're on an old gen still, this might be the time to switch. Anyway, What do you think? Put your questions and comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, hit like. If you want to see more of the same, press subscribe. And I will, of course, see you again soon.
Those security uniforms are way cooler than anything we've got.
Sorry? What do you mean there's no work?
Yeah, do you have any idea how far we've traveled? How much money we spent to hitch a ride to this dusty red rock? We were told there were jobs.
Hey.
Let's get out of here. Maybe it's not too late to catch a ride back home.
Mining's fair work. You can't take it all so seriously. I always schoolmates. Pulling rocks out of the ground.
Look at this place. I can't imagine being cramped down here, choking on the fumes and the dust. No trees, no grass. It's depressing.
Crime's at an all-time low around Sidonia.
Subterranean particle detonation imminent. Be advised to secure loose articles and find stable ground or remain seated in the event of unforeseen tremors. Detonation occurs
Keep a
in
lookout.
5,
Notify
4,
us if you see anything
3,
suspicious.
2, 1.
Additionally clamped down on this website, citing a lack of evidence. And the fact
Particle
that
detonation concluded. It is now safe to resume normal activity.
Can't believe we're still pulling up huge mineral deposits after all this time.
You know, I believe we've got the best mining team ever assembled here.
Would like to join Sidonia in celebrating
orders not to engage with non-personnel.
living on Mars. The United Colonies are proud to support the citizens of Sidonia.
If you know anyone in need of food or shelter, please send them my way. The Sanctum Universum will provide.
New to Sidonia? Hope you like sand.
There's nothing like seeing old soul coming through the big window in the morning.
You see those ads for Eugene? You thinking about checking it out? Seeing if it's worth it?
going to use the elevators or stairs to reach the other levels, try to keep them clean. I hate filing litter reports.
Hey, you looking for anything in particular?